Hello and welcome to Casual Kitchen Chats with Kate episode 2, because yes, we are going to make this a regular thing where I sit in my kitchen and have a chat with you lovely people. In episode 1 I chatted about how I feel about SMYKEVI. I'll leave that linked below if you want to go and check that out, but today we are going to be talking about invisible illnesses, the good, the bad and the ugly. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. So cystic fibrosis for many people is an invisible illness, and what that means is that if you didn't know I had CF, then you probably wouldn't be able to guess. Until I started going into a coughing fit and pull out about 5 inhalers. Only then might you think something's up. I get comments on my YouTube videos saying that I look absolutely fine, that there is nothing wrong with me, and I'm like, thanks. But in reality, they've only seen a 10-minute snapshot from a video and suddenly they know everything about my life. It doesn't quite work like that. But I think more commonly people who live with invisible illnesses do get comments in real life from other people saying that they look absolutely fine, when in reality it's a completely different story. So I feel like there's this expectation that in order to be ill, you need to look ill. And for many people that genuinely is the case, but it's not always the same for someone with an invisible illness. For example, my lungs don't work 100%. My pancreas is like, nah bruv, not happening with those enzymes. My sinuses, my joints, chest infections, my energy levels can be like mental health. I mean, I could go on, but you know, that's just some of the sort of stuff that happens on the inside that no one can tell. Now, I don't know if anyone else finds this, but wearing makeup is literally like wearing a mask because people can't tell that there's anything wrong. For example, I walked a dog for an elderly lady a while ago now, and I wasn't feeling particularly well, so I didn't wear much makeup. And I went in and she was like, oh, you look so under the weather, you don't look very well. And then the next day I go in, feel exactly the same, decide to put on a little bit more makeup, and I go in, she looks, oh, you look so much better today. You look really, really healthy. Well done you. And I'm like, thank you, blusher. And that's the issue. I look, not feel better. And it just makes me laugh how much makeup can change someone's perception of how you're doing on the inside. So don't judge the outside before you know what's going on in the inside, on the inside. That makes sense. So for me, living with an invisible illness is a little bit of a mixed bag. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's a blessing because when you meet someone for the first time, they can't tell straight away, and I always like for them to get to know me first for who I am, rather than having the possible judgment and sympathy, which is something that I definitely talk about in my video about how I tell people about cystic fibrosis, which I will link up here and in the description bar below. But that was really important for me growing up because I always used to hide my condition from everyone. So I was really grateful that it was invisible, and I was very lucky that I could keep it under wraps because, you know, I was scared of judgment and bullying and all of the rest of that. Having an invisible illness was a massive quality for me growing up. So I asked you guys over on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook what you guys thought of living with an invisible illness. So I'm going to take a look at what you guys said that the benefits were. Obviously I can't get through them all because I had quite a few, but I'll chuck them up on the screen as I'm talking. But a lot of people agreed that not having to deal with the possible judgment from other people was definitely a positive. For example, we are not subject to people's quick assumptions, prejudices, potential discriminatory behaviour for a disability they can't see. It's good to be invisible as I'm quite self-conscious and get anxiety with it, and I wouldn't want CF to be a new person's first thought or view of me. A few people mentioned about ability and limitations. For example, it means I can introduce the condition when I'm ready in a new social situation, so people get to know the person rather than their condition. Also, growing up in sport, I used to love surprising people, being judged on ability rather than CF. Also, it's good because I'm afraid people will assume my limitations if they knew. Yes, I completely agree. And then a few others said that there's less social stigma when you don't have a visible illness. I can pass as normal. So there we have a few benefits of living with an invisible illness. Now let's talk about the negative side of it. For me personally, I've had quite a few looks before in public when I start coughing a lot, and I get quite anxious of what people think. And more recently, I've had to start wearing a mask to hospital, to my clinics, which is to protect myself and other CFers. People look at you like like they are the ones in danger, and I'm like, no, I am not contagious, I don't have the coronavirus, it's just cystic fibrosis. So there we have the preconceived judgment starting to orbit. But on the flip side, if I am looking for but I don't feel it on the inside, you know, I feel achy or got sinus pain or feel really sick or something, people make that judgment that you are fine because you look it. So there's that element that people might not take you too seriously, and it could even stretch to them thinking that you're faking it or not even believing you. And of course, this is something that a lot of you mentioned in your replies. For example, it's frustrating, especially when you feel like crap and need some adjustments made, or you're exhausted and people just look at you like, what's wrong with you? You look fine. People not believing you or understanding that you're actually sick. People assume I'm exaggerating because I look healthy, so I just don't share how I'm feeling anymore. And I think that's really quite sad that it's driven someone to feel like that. And I'm sure quite a few people will relate to that. People don't recognize when you're struggling and support because you look fine. For example, Pip. Moving on. And someone else said, it's really frustrating. Not getting taken seriously is a massive issue. I'd rather be noticeably disabled, like when I am in a wheelchair, because it would make life so much easier sometimes. And finally, we may not get the accommodation that we need for our health. We may feel like we can't speak up when we need something because we look fine on the outside, and we might feel like people don't take our condition too seriously, especially when it's people like friends and family who should know better. And of course, quite a few people mentioned about parking in disabled spots and then walking out the car looking absolutely fine and having to deal with that judgment afterwards. Now people are starting to feel quite anxious about parking there, and I actually did some research into this because you can get car stickers on Amazon which say not all disabilities are visible, and my favourite one, I don't look disabled, you don't look stupid. But there you go. I might get that one actually. Add to Bill's kit. So if you're interested in any of those car stickers, I will leave a link to that below. And a few other things that people said was, it's frustrating, it just makes it easier for those who want to ignore. And it's frustrating, especially in public, and you have a coughing fit and people stare. I get more tired and people think I'm being lazy. Yep, I've heard that one before. Someone else also mentioned about having to stay away from people who have a cold or the flu because they don't understand that it can have a major effect on our health, especially if we look fine in ourselves, right? Other things that people mentioned was, when I'm ill or in pain, I do everything to try and hide it or play it down as something that isn't too serious. And when people ask you how you are, instead of telling them the ins and outs of what's wrong, you just say fine, because saying how you really feel isn't what people want to hear. And how many times have we done this? And a couple of people said that it's isolating because I feel like people don't believe me. And another person who doesn't have CF but has another invisible disability said that the loneliness that comes with being in constant pain whilst trying to carry on as normal is unbelievable. Whilst we were talking about other invisible disabilities, I've had someone who messaged me who has dyslexia, autism, dyspraxia, arthritis and scoliosis. And I'm like, I did not know you had all of those. That's why it's invisible, Kay. Bah. And what they said is that they worry that people think that they are being rude when actually they might not be understanding where the conversation is going, which results in them feeling stupid and very self-conscious. And then when it comes to dealing with their arthritis and scoliosis and that, they said that people don't understand that the pain that they are in. So for example, they wouldn't get a seat on a train because they look fine and healthy, when the reality is that they are in a lot of pain every single day. And I asked this person if there was anything that they would like other people to know, and they said that not everyone's conditions are the same, because for example, people might look at them and not know that they are autistic because there's a whole spectrum of autism, and just to be mindful that everyone is different in their condition and disability. And I think that rings true for a lot of other conditions as well, especially cystic fibrosis. It's not one size fits all, is it? I actually got a comment from someone with CF saying that people don't believe it because I'm overweight due to steroids, so people say you're too big to have CF. And to me, that is absolutely shocking, because we should all know by now that everyone with CF is completely different, and I think that's true for a lot of other conditions as well. So, the downside to living with an invisible illness is that people are very quick to judge before knowing the entire picture. But I do also think that everyone is kind of guilty for doing that. I think it's just human nature. But as long as we can recognize what we're doing and stop ourselves before it goes too far, then I think that's okay. If I am unwell and I don't look it, please know that it is not attention seeking. It is not me being lazy or that I'm not working hard enough, because that is the nature of living with an invisible illness. And don't get me wrong, there are some people who potentially like to over exaggerate. Obviously it's not my place to judge whether they are or not, but I do think that there's a very fine line between attention seeking and raising awareness. Sometimes dealing with one invisible illness can then lead on to another invisible illness, like mental health issues, like depression, anxiety, PTSD, and then you have more invisible illnesses and it's like, ah! Anyone else? But at the end of the day, everyone is so different. Invisible illnesses and disabilities are so broad that you never know when you meet someone for the first time. They might be dealing with something that you can't tell. They might be going through some chronic pain, chronic fatigue. They might be dealing with cystic fibrosis. Always try and be mindful that everyone is going through something. And also, whether you deal with an illness or a disability, whether it's visible or invisible, never feel disheartened by that, because that's what makes us unique. Even though it's a pain in the ass, sometimes literally. But everyone deserves to be treated and loved exactly the same as anyone else. If you deal with an invisible illness or disability, then let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts on it. Are you frustrated by it? Do you think it's a really good thing? Let me know down below. And a massive thank you to anyone who replied or messaged me about this. I feel like it's really important to have a collection of thoughts rather than just my own random splurge. And that concludes Casual Kitchen Chats with Kate episode 2. If you have enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts down below, and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you in the next one. Maybe I should have my own theme song. Casual Kitchen Chats with Kate. Casual Kitchen Chats with Kate. Yeah, I'll welcome that.